Beginning slides, we looked at the whole picture of all the tube of the entire alimentary canal. Well, the small intestine is the longest, so about on average 20 feet. It's going to receive secretions from the pancreas, from the liver, and then it is very important for actual digestion. It's going to complete the digestion of the nutrients that came in the chyme that comes from the stomach. It absorbs the products of digestion, so this is where nutrients are absorbed. This is where your body gets nutrients from. And then it's going to transport the remaining residue or waste to the large intestine. So small intestine, about 20 feet long, receives secretions, and a lot of the digestion takes place here. So there's three main parts that you need to know. The small intestine consists of the duodenum. We've talked about that already. That's the top part. That's where the pancreas and liver empty into. It's the first part. The jejunum and then the ileum are the other two parts. The duodenum is the shortest and most fixed portion. The rest of it is more mobile in that it can kind of move, and it lies free in your peritoneal cavity. So the duodenum is pretty much attached and very little movement to it. The small intestine is suspended from your abdominal wall by this mesentery, and this we saw when we dissected the cats. Basically, the mesentery lays on top of your small intestine. The mesenteries, which we found many blood vessels inside of, so it supports blood vessels and nerves, and then also some lymphatics, immune system that serve the intestinal area. Greater omentum then drapes over the intestine, and that is related to your mesentery. So here you can kind of see, so the duodenum is more of kind of the straight part down. Then the jejunum is a lot of this wrapping squiggly part. And then the ileum is going to be the bottom or last part where it kind of starts to straighten out again before it empties into your large intestine or colon. So then the mesentery is the part that also kind of connects or holds all this tubing together and has the blood vessels that are going to feed it and absorb waste from it. Sagittal side view, this is probably not my favorite picture, so here again, probably not on the test, but you can see here is my liver, here's the pancreas, here's the stomach, my small intestine is in this region, rectum, liver is, or not liver, your bladder is down in that area. So, the inner wall of the small intestine is full of little villi. So intestinal villi, and their job, the reason they're there, is because they increase surface area so that it can absorb more nutrients and help with mixing. So basically these little villi just are protrusions that stick out. They increase surface area, give more places for nutrients to be absorbed. Each villus, each little villi, consists of a simple columnar epithelium with a core of connective tissue. It has capillaries and it has a lymphatic capillary called a lacteal, and we'll look at a diagram of that. Between each villi are tubular intestinal glands that fit in between each one. Main thing there is your intestine has villi, and so there is one villi or one villus. And remember from the beginning of the year, this is a columnar, lined with columnar epithelial cells on the outside. Goblet cells for secretion, And then here is this lymphatic lacteal that runs through the center of it along with blood vessels. So that's the makeup of a villi. So, same thing, cells that secrete mucus in the small intestine, kind of similar to your stomach. Goblet cells, which are abundant, mucosa are going to secrete mucus again. They're again to prevent friction, to make things move easier. The mucus secreting glands are in the submucosa, so that second layer. Intestinal glands are at the bottom of the villi, and they secrete large amounts of more watery fluid, and that watery fluid is going to carry digestive products. Digestive products are nutrients. So in order for you to survive, the food that you eat has to get to your brain cells, your heart cells, your lung cells, to all of the cells in your body. So these digestive products are those nutrients that you need. And they are carried in this watery fluid, and then your villi is going to absorb them. These epithelial cells that line your villi have digestive enzymes in them. Peptidase, and here, if it ends with ase, it's an enzyme. Peptidase breaks down peptides, dipeptides, deals with proteins. Sucrase, sucrose, maltose, lactose are all kinds of sugar. So sucrase, maltase, lactase are enzymes that are going to break down these sugars. So they're going to break down a disaccharide into a monosaccharide or a simple sugar. Lipase, here again, lipids are fat. So it's going to break down triglycerides, and it's going to break it down into glycerol, which is a tiny absorbable part of fat. And then here again, your enterokinase activates trypsin from the trypsinogen, and we talked about that before. So if it ends with ase, it's an enzyme, and the front part of the word tells you what it breaks down. So sucrase breaks down sucrose. Peptidase breaks down peptides. So it kind of helps. Lipase breaks down lipids. So here, this table has pretty much everything starting from your mouth all the way down to your small intestine. This would be a good table to look over before your test. Regulation, mechanical, chemical stimulation from chyme. So chyme is that partially mixed green substance that empties from the stomach. Causes goblet cells to produce mucus, and then your intestinal glands are going to secrete that watery fluid. Distension, or when your intestines start to expand, when food goes through it, it's going to stimulate parasympathetic reflexes, and that's going to tell your small intestine that it needs to secrete its secretions. So basically that distension, when your small intestine starts to fill when food enters it, that is what stimulates secretion. The small intestine is the major site of absorption of nutrients. This is what I want you to know about the small intestine. Absorption of nutrients. This is where all of the stuff that you need is taken into your body. This happens in the small intestine. Monosaccharides, simple sugars, are absorbed by the villi through active transport or facilitated diffusion. Because these sugars are a little bit harder, are larger, they need to be pushed. It's not simple diffusion. They don't just simply float across the wall. They're going to need some energy needed to help it be absorbed. Amino acids are the same way. Because of their size and their makeup, they don't simply diffuse across a membrane. They need active transport So there is energy required to carry those across in order for them to be absorbed. Fatty acids are absorbed differently than other nutrients. Fatty acids actually dissolve into the membrane of the villi. And besides that, a lot of your cell membranes are going to have fat in it anyway. Endoplasmic reticulum of the cells are going to then rebuild the lipids. So here they are dissolved. They're as small as they get. Once they reach the endoplasmic reticulum, they're going to be reconstructed into a larger fatty substance. And then they are going to collect in clusters and be surrounded by a protein called chylomicrons. Chylomicrons are carried away through the lymphatic lacteals until they eventually enter the bloodstream. And there, when they enter the bloodstream, they can be measured in like your cholesterol counts. Chylomicrons transport fats to muscle cells, adipose cells, so muscle and fat cells. VLDL, very low density lipoprotein molecules, produced by the liver, are going to carry triglycerides. Basically, what I want you to know here, this is like your bad cholesterol. These are bad fats. So VLDLs are your bad fats, mostly making up cholesterol. I don't want a lot of these in my blood. Cells in other tissues are going to help to get rid of some of this, and endocytosis, basically they are absorbing or taking it into the cell. HDL, this is your good cholesterol. HDLs remove cholesterol from tissues, return it to the liver, and help break down cholesterol. So here again, if you do a blood test, you're going to have a ratio of HDLs versus LDLs, and that kind of deals with your cholesterol, liver, and your risk of heart attack. So every fat that you have is not all bad fat. Diagram, you can just kind of see how those chylomicrons are moving things. And then absorption, the intestinal villi are going to absorb some water and some electrolytes. Water, osmosis, electrolytes here again, active transport. However, most water will be absorbed later in the large intestine. And there's the table of the different types of nutrients. Movements. Small intestine is going to carry on segmentation, so it means that's going to continue. Food is going to be continued to move one part at a time. Movement through the small intestine is slow. So it typically takes 3 to 10 hours for your food to travel through your small intestine, which is why typically the food that you eat does not leave your body until approximately 24 hours later. When you get hungry, that deals more with your stomach being empty. Your intestine still has food in it. The ileocecal sphincter is basically the sphincter or the connection between the small intestine and the large intestine. And that is also usually closed unless there's a reflex after a meal or when the food gets to the bottom of the small intestine. Strong peristaltic waves can move material through your small intestine too quickly, and that's when you have diarrhea, because water, there's not time for water to be removed. So, and that, typically when people have the flu and they're sick and they have diarrhea, they eat something and it goes right through them. I mean, you hear that, it goes right through you. And that's what happens. Instead